Listen, a dynamic is unfolding at this very moment in your relationship, in your existence, in your world, and it's completely hidden from you. You believe that all is well. You convince yourself that you are being a decent man, patient, mature, and full of understanding. But can you guess what is actually taking place? You are meticulously digging your own grave as a man, and you don't even perceive that you're the one gripping the shovel. On a daily basis, there are these instances, these unseen moments that simply drift past your awareness. And every time you allow them to go unchallenged, every time you offer forgiveness without comprehending what you're absolving, you diminish in her perception, bit by bit, until one morning you look in the mirror and you are nothing. Absolutely nothing. A phantom adrift in his own life, in his own house, asking himself how in the world he ended up in this place. Do you want to know the reality? The unvarnished truth that is never spoken aloud. It is not the grand betrayals that demolish a man's standing in a partnership. It's not when she is unfaithful. It's not when she raises her voice at you. It's not when some theatrical conflict erupts and everything falls apart. No, that's all too clear. You can anticipate those events. You have a script for how to respond to them. What truly breaks you down? What genuinely destroys you are these invisible cuts, these minuscule instances of disrespect that you fail to even process as disrespect because they are disguised as justifications, as rationalizations, as you're making a big deal out of it, and you're being overly sensitive, and why are you turning this into a major issue? But this is the part you must grasp, and I need you to truly internalize this. When a woman disrespects you in these subtle ways, and you let it go, you are not being compassionate. You are not demonstrating maturity. You are teaching her that you possess no personal boundaries, no self-worth, no spine. And as soon as she learns that lesson, once she truly absorbs it, it's over for you. You may still technically be in the relationship. You might share the same address, sleep in the same bed, but you as a man, in her eyes, are finished. Let me explain precisely what I mean, and you will see it instantly because any man who has been in a relationship has encountered at least one of these scenarios, if not all of them, and had no idea what was transpiring. The first one, and this will make some people uneasy, but I am not concerned with comfort. I am concerned with the truth. When she wields her period, her hormonal cycle, her time of the month, as a justification for treating you with disrespect. And before the chorus of indignation begins, I am not suggesting that women do not go through genuine physical and emotional trials during menstruation. They absolutely do. But here is the critical point. Here is what you must observe. Watch her behavior toward other people during that same period. Pay attention to how she interacts with her boss, her co-workers, her friends, or even a clerk at a store. Is she screaming at them? Is she hurling insults at them? Is she looking down on them with contempt? Of course not. So why is it that when it comes to you, she suddenly loses all self-control? I'll tell you why. Because she has made a subconscious calculation, a judgment, perhaps not even on a conscious level, but she has concluded that you are a safe target for her disrespect. You are the person who will endure it. You are the one who will pardon it. You are the one who will buy the excuse. And with every instance that you do, every single time you say, "It's all right, I get it, it's just your hormones," you are broadcasting that your self-respect, your dignity, your standing as a man, is less valuable than her fleeting discomfort. You believe you're being empathetic, you aren't. You're being feeble, and she senses it. Deep within that primal part of her mind that assesses men, that determines who is deserving of respect and who is not, she is cataloging you under the heading of doormat. And once you're placed in that file, you'll have a hell of a time getting out. This is what follows. She begins to probe the limits of this newly discovered influence. The next month, it might be a bit worse. The disrespectful behavior might extend for a longer duration. It might even happen in more public settings. And you, believing you're a supportive partner, continue to forgive, continue to understand, continue to find reasons for her actions. All the while, she is losing more and more respect for you with each cycle that passes. The second scenario, and this one ruins more men than any other, when she becomes intoxicated and says things, does things, and behaves in ways that mortify you, disrespect you, and tear you down, only for the next day to be filled with, "I was drunk. I didn't really mean it. That wasn't me speaking." Let me tell you a secret about alcohol, something everyone inherently knows but is reluctant to acknowledge. Alcohol doesn't transform you into someone else. It strips away the facade and reveals who you truly are. It takes off the mask, the societal conditioning, the filters we all employ to function in the world. What emerges when she is drunk? That is her genuine opinion. That is her authentic feeling. That is the person she is when her guard is down. I knew a guy, very successful, built a company from scratch, a pillar in his community. His wife would get drunk at family functions, at parties with their friends, and she would ridicule him. I'm not talking about gentle jabs or playful banter. I mean vicious, targeted mockery. She would discuss their private life, his abilities in bed, his physical appearance, the very insecurities he had confided in her during moments of closeness. And the entire room would fall silent, people looking away, desperate to change the topic. The following day, "Oh, honey, I am so sorry. I have no idea what got into me. You know that's not how I really feel." And he would forgive her, time and time again, because he loved her. Because he thought that's what a good husband was supposed to do. Because he bought into the fiction that the drunk version of her was not the real one. Do you know what ensued? It intensified. The ridicule became more biting, more public, and more common. And why? Because she learned that her actions had zero consequences. She could vent her disdain for him while intoxicated and suffer no penalty once she was sober. This is the part men fail to grasp. When you forgive without there being a repercussion, you are not demonstrating love. You are demonstrating weakness. You are not being honorable. You are being naive. You are not preserving your relationship. You are demolishing your own status within it. The third unseen scenario, and this one is especially destructive because it plays out directly in front of your children, when she subverts your authority as a father. You inform the kids they cannot have something, and she goes behind you and gives it to them. You establish a limit, and she ignores it. You create a household rule, and she carves out an exception. And she does this in their presence, ensuring they witness that dad's word is ultimately meaningless, that mom holds the real power, that dad is merely a figurehead. Do you understand what she is doing? She is acquiring authority on the cheap. She is casting herself as the hero, the cool parent, the one who truly understands, all at the cost of your standing. Not just as their father, but as a man within that home. And your children? They are absorbing the lesson that dad can be disregarded, that his decisions are not final, that dad is secondary. I have watched this obliterate men, not with a sudden explosion, not in one fell swoop, but gradually, like erosion wearing down a cliff face. Day after day, decision after decision, until the man awakens to the reality that his own children do not respect him. They turn to their mother for everything of consequence. Dad becomes the wallet, the taxi service, the handyman, but not a true figure of authority. And it all began with those minor instances of subversion that he allowed to pass because he wanted to avoid a fight. He didn't want to appear controlling. He didn't want to stir up conflict. But this is what you must comprehend. When she undermines you before the children, she is not only disrespecting you as her partner, she is dismantling your role as a father. And if you permit it, if you forgive it without any consequences, you are an active participant in your own demotion. The fourth situation, and this one is so pervasive that most men don't even perceive it as disrespectful, when she degrades you in social settings. Perhaps it's a joke at your expense that crosses a line. Maybe it's her disclosing something personal you shared with her in private. It could be her contradicting you in front of friends, making you appear foolish or ignorant. And when you address it with her later, "Oh, stop being so sensitive. It was only a joke. Can't you handle a little teasing? I was just telling the truth." Let me set the scene for you. You're out for dinner with friends, perhaps other couples, maybe friends of hers. It doesn't matter. The topic of conversation shifts to work, to aspirations, to future plans. You bring up something you're developing, a project or a goal, something that fills you with excitement, and she lets out a laugh. Not a supportive chuckle, not an encouraging laugh, but that dismissive sound that communicates, as if. And then she might say something like, "He's always going on about these grand schemes, but they never amount to anything." Or, "That's just his latest fixation. Next month, he'll be on to something else." Or my personal favorite. "He imagines he's going to be the next big success in his industry, but he can't even fix the leaky faucet." She drops this bomb. The table falls silent for a second. People fidget in their seats. Someone quickly steers the conversation elsewhere. And you? You're sitting there, seething with humiliation, but you force a smile, you chuckle along, you pretend it's all in good fun because what are your options? 'Cause a scene? Appear as if you can't take a joke? Look insecure? So you choke it down. You forgive it. You tell yourself she didn't intend it that way, that you're overanalyzing it, that it's not a major issue. But here is what truly transpired. She just signaled to everyone at that table that she holds you in contempt. She demonstrated to them that it is acceptable to mock you, to belittle you, to not take you seriously. And even worse, she showed you that she is perfectly comfortable disrespecting you in public, that she is so confident you will do nothing about it that she can humiliate you in front of an audience. And every single time you allow it, every time you forgive without a consequence, you validate her conviction that you are weak, that you are someone who can be disrespected without any fear of retaliation. The fifth situation, and this one is the relationship killer that no one discusses, when she turns your relationship into public domain. She recounts every detail of your arguments to her mother. She dissects your private issues with her circle of friends. She seeks advice from her colleagues about your partnership. She posts vague, passive-aggressive status updates on social media that are clearly about you. Suddenly, your relationship is no longer a private matter between two individuals. It's a verdict reached by a committee. It's a group assignment. It is public theater. Do you know what this accomplishes? It eradicates any possibility of intimacy, of privacy, of that sacred protected space between two people where challenges can be resolved without external meddling. But beyond that, it demolishes your standing, because now you are not just contending with her perception of you. You are contending with her mother's perception, her friends' perceptions, the collective judgment of her entire social sphere. You are cast as the villain in a narrative told by someone else, powerless to defend yourself, unable to offer your perspective, just the antagonist in her story. I knew a man, a good man, trying to navigate some issues with his wife. Standard things, communication breakdowns, intimacy struggles, the kinds of hurdles nearly every couple encounters. But she broadcasted everything. Her mother was privy to every detail. Her sister received daily reports. Her friends acted as her personal board of advisors. And do you know the result? Every time they had a disagreement, she would arrive armed with the opinions and counsel of 5 other people. My mom thinks you're being controlling. Sarah says that what you did is emotional abuse. Everyone I've talked to agrees that you're being unreasonable. He was no longer in a relationship with his wife. He was in a relationship with a tribunal. And every time he forgave this violation of their privacy, every time he let it slide that she was airing their personal business to anyone who would listen, he surrendered another piece of his power, another piece of his authority, another piece of his standing as a man in that relationship. Now, allow me to tell you something about all of these scenarios. Something vital that the majority of men overlook. None of these events occur in a vacuum. They are all interconnected. They are all trials. They are all instances where she is subconsciously assessing whether you are a man deserving of her respect or just another person she can steamroll. When you forgive the hormone excuse, you communicate that your dignity is up for negotiation. When you forgive the drunken disrespect, you communicate that her contempt for you carries no repercussions. When you permit her to subvert your parental authority, you communicate that you are not, in fact, the man of the house. When you laugh along with public humiliation, you communicate that your self-respect is meaningless. When you allow your private affairs to become public spectacle, you communicate that you have no boundaries. And incrementally, forgiveness by forgiveness, excuse by excuse, you begin to vanish. Not in a sudden, dramatic fashion, but slowly, inexorably, until one day you are a ghost haunting your own existence. You are the person who covers the expenses but has no voice. You are the one who is physically present but carries no weight. You are the man who is no longer truly a man, just a presence, a convenience, a utility. Do you want to know the truly twisted part? The part that is never said aloud? She doesn't even want you to forgive these things. Deep down, in that primal core of her being that evaluates men, that determines who merits her best behavior and who receives her worst, she wants you to stand up for yourself. She wants you to have boundaries. She wants you to be the type of man who will not stand for disrespect. But with every instance of forgiveness without a consequence, you fail that test. Every time you let it slide, you demonstrate that you are not that man. And this is where most men get it completely backward. They equate consequences with rage, with violence, with being abusive. No, that isn't strength. That is weakness. Those aren't boundaries. That is a loss of self-control. Real consequences are serene, deliberate, and absolute. Real consequences are enforced without emotion, without theatrics, without intimidation. Real consequences are simply the logical outcome of unacceptable conduct. She uses her period as a shield for disrespect. The consequence is withdrawal. Not an angry withdrawal, not a punitive one, but the natural space that forms when someone demonstrates they cannot manage their behavior around you. You remove yourself from her presence. You become less accessible. You do not debate. You do not justify. You simply create distance. And when she asks, "What is wrong?" I do not permit anyone to speak to me in that manner. When you are prepared to communicate respectfully, I will be here. Until that time, I have other things to attend to. She humiliates you while drunk. The consequence is instantaneous, not the next morning when she is sober and apologetic. In that very moment, you get up and leave. You don't create a spectacle. You don't get into an argument. You simply exit. And when she sobers up and wants to discuss it, your behavior was unacceptable. I will not be in your presence when you drink if that is how you intend to behave. This is not open for debate. She subverts your authority with the children. The consequence is a private discussion where you make it absolutely clear that this behavior ends now. Not a suggestion, not a negotiation, a declaration of fact. When you undermine me in front of the children, you are not just harming my authority. You are harming the stability of this family. It will stop immediately, or we will have to seriously reevaluate how we are co-parenting. She humiliates you in public. The consequence is immediate and clear. You do not laugh it off. You do not play along. You look her directly in the eye and state, "That was inappropriate," and then you change the subject, and later, in private. Public disrespect is a firm boundary for me. It will not happen again. She makes your relationship public business. The consequence is a boundary as unyielding as iron. Our relationship is between the two of us. When you involve outsiders, you erode the trust and intimacy we share. If you feel the need to discuss our problems with a third party, we will see a professional together. Otherwise, what is ours stays ours. Do you see the common thread in these consequences? They are not emotional outbursts. They are not punishments. They are not efforts to dominate or manipulate. They are simply the natural outcome of someone crossing a line that must never be crossed. They are what happens when a man understands his own value and refuses to settle for anything less than respect. But here is the challenge, and this is where most men stumble. Consequences are effective only if you are willing to see them through to the very end. If you establish a boundary and then immediately fold when she begins to cry, when she apologizes profusely, when she vows to change, you are in a far worse position than if you had never set the boundary at all, because now she has learned that your boundaries are merely suggestions. Now she knows your consequences are empty threats. Now she knows you are all talk and no follow-through. This is the reason most men are incapable of doing this. Not because they are ignorant of what to do, but because they are unprepared for the fallout that occurs when you actually enforce a consequence. She might become enraged. She might threaten to walk out. She might weep and cast herself as the victim. She might rally others to her side against you. She might deny you affection, intimacy, and cooperation. And most men, when confronted with this kind of reaction, buckle. They forgive. They forget. They revert to being the understanding, patient, mature man who tolerates disrespect in the name of love. But here is what those men fail to see. When you cave, when you abandon your own consequences, you do not salvage your relationship. You forfeit your position within it. You become less of a man in her eyes. You become someone who can be manipulated, controlled, and disrespected with impunity. And in a cruel twist, you become less attractive, less desirable, and less worthy of her best self. The men who hold their ground, who command respect, who have partners that treat them with dignity, are not flawless. They are not without their own shortcomings. They are not some mythical standard of masculinity. They are simply men who grasp that respect is non-negotiable. They are men who know that forgiveness without consequence is just weakness disguised as a virtue. They are men who would rather be on their own than be disrespected. And here is the unvarnished truth that will anger some, but must be stated. If you have been forgiving these actions, if you've been letting these invisible signs of disrespect slide, it may already be too late for your current relationship. She may have already filed you away as weak, as a pushover, as someone unworthy of her respect. And once that mental categorization is complete, once she has fully internalized that you are not a man who commands respect, changing her perception is nearly impossible. Why? Because every new attempt to establish a boundary will be viewed as inauthentic, as a performance, as you trying to be someone you're not. She will test you even more aggressively. She will push back with greater force. She will manufacture drama to see if you genuinely mean it this time. And most men, already drained by months or years of accepting disrespect, will lack the fortitude to endure that storm. This is why prevention is paramount. This is why you must set consequences from the very start. This is why the very first time she crosses one of these lines, you must meet it with calm, deliberate, non-negotiable consequences. Because once you let it slide, once you create a pattern of forgiveness without accountability, you are fighting a losing battle. But let's say you're hearing this and it resonates. Let's say you are that man who has been forgiving, who has been understanding, who has been accepting disrespect to maintain harmony. What is your next move? First, you must accept that altering this dynamic will be difficult. More difficult than if you had established boundaries from day one. You are not just creating new rules, you are dismantling old habits. You are not just demanding respect, you are rebuilding the entire foundation of your relationship. Second, you must brace yourself for resistance. Immense resistance. She is comfortable with the way things are. She benefits from it. She will not relinquish it without a fight. When you suddenly begin to enforce consequences, her reaction will be intense. She might accuse you of changing, of becoming controlling, of not being the man she married. This is a test. This is her attempting to force you back into your old box. If you yield here, it's over. Third, you must be consistent, not intermittently, not when you're in the mood, not when it's easy. Every single time a line is crossed, a consequence must follow. Every single time you are disrespected, you must respond accordingly. This unwavering consistency is what will ultimately shift the dynamic, if it can be shifted at all. Fourth, and this is absolutely critical, you have to be willing to walk away. If you are not prepared to lose the relationship, you have already lost your position in it. This is not about making threats to leave. This is not about issuing ultimatums. This is about knowing, in your very soul, that you would choose solitude over disrespect. When she feels this, when she truly understands that you are not bluffing, that is when things may begin to change. Or they may not, and you must be at peace with either possibility. Look, I understand this is difficult to hear. I know it contradicts everything you've been told about being a good partner, about compromise and understanding, but those principles only function on a foundation of mutual respect. When respect is gone, when you are being systematically diminished and disrespected in these subtle ways, no amount of compromise will save you. No amount of understanding will make her respect you. No amount of forgiveness will reclaim your position. The only thing that is effective is consequences. The only thing that preserves respect is boundaries. The only thing that prevents you from becoming nothing in her eyes is your refusal to be treated like nothing. Every man hearing this has a decision to make. You can proceed down the path of forgiveness without consequences, of understanding without boundaries, of acceptance without respect. You can continue to tell yourself you are being mature, that you are being a good partner, that this is what love is. And slowly, certainly, you will fade away. You will become nothing in her eyes, nothing in your children's eyes, and nothing in your own. Or you can decide this very day that respect is non-negotiable, that boundaries are vital, that consequences are mandatory, that you would rather be alone with your dignity than together without it. This is not about being harsh or cruel or controlling. This is about being a man who recognizes his own worth and refuses to accept anything less. The invisible disrespect will continue to surface. The tests will persist. The excuses will be presented. The question is, will you continue to forgive without consequence? Will you continue to accept the unacceptable? Will you continue to diminish yourself in the name of keeping the peace? Or will you finally grasp that when you forgive these things without consequences, you don't just lose her respect, you lose yourself. You become a shadow of the man you could be, a ghost of the man you once were, nothing in the eyes of the person who should respect you the most. The choice is yours. But realize this, every time you forgive without consequence, you are choosing to become less. Every time you accept disrespect, you are choosing to disappear. Every time you allow these invisible cuts to go unaddressed, you are bleeding out your masculine core, drop by drop, until nothing remains. Don't be nothing. Don't accept being nothing. Don't forgive your way into oblivion. Be the man who has boundaries. Be the man who enforces consequences. Be the man who would rather stand alone with respect than live together in contempt. Because ultimately, if you forgive these things, even once, without knowing what you are truly forgiving, without understanding what you are truly accepting, You will become nothing in her eyes. And once you are nothing, once you have allowed yourself to be reduced to that state, there is no coming back. There is no recovery. There is only the slow, agonizing realization that you gave away your power, one forgiveness at a time, until there was nothing left to give. Don't be that man. Don't become nothing. Do not forgive without consequences. Your dignity, your respect, your very essence as a man depends on it.